Hey there guys, what's up? It's Autobot Mike 18 here with another TV episode review. Guys, what's up? I haven't seen you guys in a long time. I haven't made a video, uploaded a video in days, nearly a week. It's been since my last upload, guys. Before I start this episode review, obviously guys, I'm going to be reviewing the newest episode of The Walking Dead. Even this video is up late. But guys, this whole week, I just want to take this time to quickly apologize for the fact that this entire week I just didn't upload anything. I was really overloaded with work at school. I was in the middle of working on 3 different film shoots this weekend. I did mine, I worked on a friend's, and then I just did a group shoot today. I have been so busy. It's crazy. Now I gotta edit everything next week. Nevertheless, just to make a long story short, I apologize for the lack of videos. I'm gonna try to get back on top with things. This weekend, luckily, no really good, interesting movies came out, so that's cool. Next weekend, however, we got Mockingjay, so I'll be covering that and all that. And then, of course, we got Black Friday coming up and all that stuff. So, nevertheless, guys, just wanted to make that known real quick. Before I get into this review. Also, sorry for the different location. I've shot over here before, but it's late. It's like 12:40 in the morning, and I just watched the newest episode of The Walking Dead. I watched it from 11 to 12, then I watched Comic Book Men, and now I'm doing the review. I couldn't watch it at 9. I was, like I said, I was on a shoot all day, and I ran late. So anyway, let's get into the review, guys, because there are a lot of things to say about tonight's episode, which I was pretty much looking forward to for the most part. Tonight's episode is Season 5, Episode 6, Consumed. There's only 2 more episodes left until the mid-season finale, until we break until February. And tonight's episode, guys, focuses on just Carol and Daryl for the entire episode. And when I saw the promo for this, I told myself, you know what? This could either be really good or really bad. Part of me was saying, you know what, this episode's going to be decent because it has 2 of the better characters on the show, and it's focusing on them. And then another part of me told myself, you know what, the episode could falter because, again, it's one of those storylines where it's not focusing on the core group, it's just focusing on one section of the group, which in this case is Daryl and Carol. And that's one thing I was a little worried about. Nevertheless, I shouldn't have been worried because it was focusing on Daryl and Carol, who are 2 of the best characters on the show right now. And I really enjoyed this episode, guys. Arguably one of the best of the season so far. I really, really liked it. For an episode that only focuses on one part of the group, in this case Daryl and Carol, it's one of the best standalone episodes we've had in a very long time. You know, the second half of Season 4 produced a lot of crappy, slow, drawn-out episodes. This episode was riddled with tension, had some great character moments, really great character spotlight on Carol in this episode. Great badass moments, really well-directed, well-shot episode overall. I was really, really impressed with it, guys. So let's get to it. The episode has a numerous amount of flashbacks, which I always like when The Walking Dead does it. I love when most shows do that. I'm going to take some water, guys. I like when shows do that, when they flash back on an event that had happened previously. So I think that's pretty awesome. So the episode actually starts off with a flashback from when Carol was banished by Rick, when the 2 of them went on that run. She was kind of on her own, and just shows her like in frustration over being banished and everything she had sort of done prior to that, which entailed burning Karen and David. And then the end of that flashback ends with her driving up to the prison, and the camera racks focus from her, and you see a reflection of the prison tower burning in flames on the car window. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Good way to start off the episode. I liked that. So Daryl and Carol are the focus of the main episode. They are following the car that they saw at the end of episode 2. Yeah, at the end of episode 2. The car with the white crosses, because it's the same car Daryl believes that took Beth, because Daryl had been looking for Beth ever since she was kidnapped at the end of Season 4. So they follow it into Atlanta, which is, as we already know, that this car belongs to the group that is currently at the Grady Memorial Hospital, which is where Beth is. Okay, it's run by that cop lady, whatever I forget her name, Dawn, whatever her name is. So they get into Atlanta, and I love how the episode takes them back into Atlanta, and there's a few references to previous episodes in this episode, so I really like that as well. But they get into Atlanta, and Carol and Daryl's car runs out of gas, so they're basically like running around, like going through different buildings. They stay in one building for the night. Carol actually brings Daryl to this building that she had been in before, right around when the apocalypse broke out, as a matter of fact. And it's revealed later in the episode, Carol brought Sophia to this like shelter, which is the building they go into their first night in the city in Atlanta, on the hunt for Beth. And Carol reveals she brought Sophia there to get away from Ed. Eventually, she decided against that, decided to just go with Ed to go. She went back to Ed, and of course, they eventually wound up with Shane and all them back in season 1. So that was pretty interesting. That so that's like the place that her and Carol go to early on in the episode is a personal place to Carol. It meant a lot to her. It was one of her moments where she was alone with Sophia, and unfortunately she decided not to stay there and went back to Ed, and that really didn't end well. She ended up losing both of them. But anyway, so one thing I love about this scene, and one thing I just love about Carol in general, how much this person has grown, how much this character has grown on the show. There's a part of the scene where they hear like a banging, and they go to investigate. It's the middle of the night, and Carol sees they see a walker like trying to get in through this door, which is like closed, and Carol goes to open the door to kill the walker, and Daryl like just pulls her back, like he puts his hand on her. He's like, no, you don't have to do it. There's no need to do it right now. I love seeing Daryl, this absolute badass, and he always was and still is a badass on the show, has to restrain Carol we're talking about, who's gone through such a metamorphosis on the show, from going to kill a zombie that doesn't need to be killed. I just love that. It really shows where Carol is right now, her place in this world, basically, and I love that. So that was that's the beginning portion of the episode. The next morning, and you know what? I'm just going to get through the flashbacks that Carol has right now, just to get through them for the sake of getting through them. She flashes back to her and Tyrese when they were burying Lizzie and Mika's bodies, right in the yard or whatever, back before. She flashes back to right after when she burned Karen and David's bodies, which was pretty interesting. And I believe there might have been one more flashback. I can't think of it right now, but those are basically some of the main flashbacks. I'm trying to think of other Carol. Oh yeah, she had one more flashback right after she saved the group from Terminus, when she was like covered in the guts and shit, and she had like the vest on or whatever, and she saved them with the explosion or whatever, and then she went through Terminus and got all the weapons. There's a shot of her taking off the garment and rubbing her face and cleaning it, and then eventually she goes and meets back up with the group. So that so I think all that happened in chronological order, actually. Yeah, I think it did. All that. Well, no, not all of it. Those flashbacks, not all of them happened chronologically, but still. So those are all the flashbacks. Now, one thing I didn't get with this episode. Right after the scene where Daryl restricts Carol from going to kill that zombie, it's the next morning, and Daryl's burning this body, and she like thanks him for burning it. I have no idea who Daryl was burning. I'm guessing it was some zombie. I think, you know what, it might have been the zombie she was trying to kill. Maybe Daryl actually did kill it and he burned it for her, and she thanked him. But I'm not sure. It wasn't really clear. It definitely wasn't a human character. But anyway, nevertheless. So Daryl and Carol continue the search as they go deeper into the city. one cool part. They weapon up. They get all geared up, go into the city, and Daryl like sets like a stack of papers on fire and throws it to like distract like a horde of zombies, and then they enter into this building, picking off walkers along the way, and eventually they get into this building, they get through it, and they stop at like this window, and they look out the window using Carol's like rifle, using her scope on her rifle, and they spot a van with white crosses on the windows on the back of the van, like across the way, like on this like freeway kind of highway thing going on. So they realize it's probably connected to that car that they had been chasing, so they decide to go after that. And there was a really sort of touching scene that went on there between the two of them, and they were when they were looking at that white van, there was like a charred portion of the city below them, and I didn't know what that was at first. My brother, who'd watched the episode before me, was rewatching it with me, said he thought it was where they blew up the CDC. I disagreed with that, but if that was a pretty nice little Easter egg that they shoved in there. So yeah, that was pretty interesting, and I think at that point, Carol like brings up Lizzie and Mika, and she's like, "You never asked about Lizzie and Mika," and she just she brings that up to Daryl, and there is another really interesting scene between the two of them later on in the episode that really says a lot about Carol, and I'm going to get into it shortly. But as they're about to leave the building they're in right now to go and check out that van, what do you call it? They get mugged by Noah, played by Tyler James Williams, the kid who just escaped the hospital. Tyler James Williams, who's played Chris on Everybody Hates Chris. He escapes the hospital, and with Beth, how Beth was kidnapped. He got out, and he runs into Daryl and Carol, steals their weapons, steals the rifle they have, steals Daryl's crossbow, and he doesn't take Carol's pistol. As he runs off and like sends these walkers after them, Carol pulls out her pistol and goes to shoot him, and like Daryl like pushes her, and he's like, "No, don't do that." And she's like, "I wasn't gonna hit him. I was gonna shoot him in the leg just to get him. He ran off with our crap." And Daryl's like, "He's just a kid." And I'm like, "Carol, you're such a badass, man. I love her. Awesome character on this show." Anyway, so they come across Noah, and he took their weapons. So they head over to the white van, where the white van is, and they open it up, and it's like dangling on this freeway, and it's like about ready to like give way and fall over. So they go in, and they're looking inside, and they find clues that lead them to know that it belongs to Grady Memorial Hospital. So they know that's the hospital they need to get to. So once they realize that, they get swarmed by a bunch of walkers, fight through a couple. Now, mind you, they don't have their weapons because Noah took them all, so most of them. So they shut the doors to the ambulance, or the white van, whatever, ambulance, white van, whatever. They get in the driver and passenger seats, and they like rock the van and get it to fall over the freeway. Now, this is probably my one flaw with this episode, and it's that there is no way in hell they survived that fall. I'm sorry. They're both dead. Daryl and Carol did not survive this episode. They're both dead. But because it's the show, and because we have to believe that they'll live, they're still alive. But they didn't. They didn't survive that fall. I'm sorry. It was too steep. It was way too high up. And I love how the van was like falling like this at first, but it lands like on on the tires, like straight up and down. So I didn't buy that. It was exciting. The scene was exciting. It took me out of the moment a little bit. That's my only flaw. So nevertheless, they keep going on foot, and I think they get into another building at some point, and they're on their way to the Grady Memorial Hospital. And there's a really interesting, almost touching scene. Not touching, but really it says a lot about Carol. A scene that was really necessary, and it makes sense. It has the flashbacks make sense, and it has all that makes sense. Carol starts talking to Daryl, and she's like, "Yeah, that place we went to earlier in the episode, the shelter that she once took Sophia to. I brought her there, and then for a day, and then I brought her back to Ed, and then that's obviously how they wound up with Rick with Shane in the group, before Rick came." And she's like, I shouldn't have done that. She basically admits, like, I've become something that I've always wanted to become my entire life, but I just never did. And then the title of the episode is called Consumed, and she uses that word. She's like, it just consumes you. And it really just perfectly sums up the character of Carol. This is what she's done. This apocalypse has absolutely consumed her and brought out that tough side of her that she's always craved to have. She's always craved to be something more than just the wife that gets beaten by Ed, and that's what this apocalypse brought out in her, even after Sophia's death. I think that's something that started it, and then once she even says it, once she got to the prison, everything changed. She realized what she needed to do, what she needed to be in order to survive in this world. And from there on, she's absolutely right. And I love that moment in this episode. It says so much about her, and it was just perfect. It really was. So anyway, nevertheless, they're in that building. Really excellent scene. Excellent development on Carol's part, having her go through that sort of self-realization, and she's like been struggling with the past decisions she's made the whole entire episode, and she's flashing back on all these things she's done, even though it was purposeful and it had purpose there. It got her to survive. She's had to do things that she kind of regrets, but she did these things for the right reasons. Killing Lizzie, killing Karen and David, she had to do these things, and she felt it was for everyone's better interest, her better interest, everyone's. So anyway, they run back into Noah, who was inadvertently following them, apparently, and he's getting like trapped or whatever. Daryl literally like rushes into the scene and like slams him against the bookshelf, and the bookshelf falls on him. And a pretty awesome takedown. And this walker's about to kill him, and Carol's like, "Come on, Daryl, we can't just leave him." And he's like, "He took all our crap, leave him." And Daryl, gives in, kills the walker with his crossbow, and They get all the weapons back and all that, and they eventually, they come to terms with each other, Daryl and Carol and Noah, and apparently there's a car that's driving around outside, downstairs outside, and it belongs to the Grady Memorial Hospital. Group members from the hospital are driving around, and Noah's he's trying to escape from them because he just escaped from the hospital, so he doesn't want to run into them. So he tells them, "Oh crap, they're looking for me all since the hospital," and that's how they connect. Beth has been with Noah, and they're looking for Beth. So I like when stuff like that happens on the show, like two characters or characters looking for another character, and they come across a character who has been in contact with the character they're looking for. So that's what happened tonight. And Daryl and Carol, once they hear the mention of a hospital, they know they're looking for a hospital. They ask, "Is there a blonde girl there?" And he's like, "Yeah, Beth." And they're like, "Oh crap, we gotta go after her." So they exit the building, and they're going to head towards the hospital. As they are, Carol runs ahead. Noah and Daryl are following behind her. Carol gets hit by the car that's driving around outside, and Noah pulls him back. He's like, "No, don't go after." Noah pulls Daryl back. He's like, "No, don't go after. You can't. You gotta let it go. She's going to be taken. They're going to take care of her, whatever." So the two guys get out of the car, take Carol, put her on a stretcher, put her back in the car, and they speed off. Daryl's pissed. This is how Carol was taken into the hospital. Episode 2 was revealed Carol's not with Daryl. Now we know why. And episode 4, the one that was centered on Beth, Carol comes into the hospital. So we know she's in the hospital. She's going to meet up with Beth, obviously. And at the very end of the episode, Daryl and Noah steal a truck and they're obviously headed back to the group. So that's where the show is going toward the mid-season finale. Noah and Daryl, and we both know they obviously make it back, because that is who Daryl was talking to at the end of episode 3, when he said, "Come on out." At the end of the episode, when Michonne found them in the woods at night, that is who Daryl was talking about. Daryl was talking to? It's Noah. So Daryl and Noah are going to get back to the group, and I have a feeling they're going to all head back into Atlanta to get Carol and Beth out of the hospital. And Rick and the gang, they're going to have some serious gunfight with the group, with that group. So that's where this mid-season finale is headed, and that was tonight's episode, guys. I gotta say, I was really pleasantly surprised with this episode. I knew it was going to be more exciting than other episodes that only focus on one group, and I was right. And I knew it was going to be that way because it's Daryl and Carol, and they're two of the best characters on the show. And it was better than I thought it was going to be, honestly, and that's why I really liked it. I'm going to go pretty high with my score, actually. I really, really enjoyed this episode. I'm going to go 9.25 out of 10. I dug this episode, man. I loved seeing them go back into Atlanta. I loved the tension that was in the episode. I loved the interaction between Daryl and Carol. Such a great duo. Just to see the storyline tied up, and we were left in suspense for the last couple weeks as to who was with Daryl, what happened to Carol, why she was being wheeled in that gurney. This episode was hands down better than last week's episode, which was good, but not as good as tonight's. And this episode was also better than the 4th episode. I don't know if it's as good as the first 3, which were on fire, but this one is pretty darn good. I really, really enjoyed it. I especially loved all the stuff on Carol, just fleshing her character out and having her come to terms with herself and just openly admitting that she's been consumed by her desire to survive, and it's affected the choices she's had to make. I love that with this episode. So many good things going for it. Like I said, the only thing that really bothered me with this episode is the unrealistic scene where the van falls and they both survive that. Had that scene literally just been cut out or just set up in a different way where it doesn't fall like 20 stories off a freeway and they survive, I would have really loved this episode even a lot more. But I'm going 9.25 out of 10, which is still a pretty good score for this episode. I really, really dug it. So what did you guys think of the episode? Let me know down below in the comments, and give me your predictions for next week. Next week's episode, I know exactly what's going to happen. Daryl and Noah are going to arrive with Rick and the gang. They're going to tell them what happened with Carol and Beth, and they're both at the hospital, obviously, as we both know this now. And they're going to head off to the hospital. Rick, Tyrese, Sasha, Michonne, probably. They're all going to head off to the hospital. Carl, maybe. Yeah, that's what's going to... And then they're going to focus on Beth and Carol in the hospital. And then I think they're also going to shoehorn in Glenn, because in the promo... they showed Glenn. So they're going to shoehorn the whole Abraham, Eugene, Rosita, Glenn, Maggie thing. You know, maybe they're going to cross paths. I don't know. So I'm really excited for next week's episode. And, of course, the finale, because I know where the mid-season finale is going. It's going to be this big battle between Rick and the gang and the people of the hospital, namely Dawn, all the cops, all of them. So I'm pretty excited to see where it's going to go, who's going to make it out alive. And this episode was really, really good. One of the best standalone episodes I've seen in a while. So... excuse me. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry for the delayed review. I'm sorry for the lack of videos recently, guys. I'm going to try to get back on track within this week. So stay tuned for more videos, hopefully. I'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching.